It is just a minute or two after 9. We'll get started. And if you'd please join us in prayer and pledge, Commissioner Leininger.
Sorry, I got to look at the order here. Is that prayer first and then pledge?
Yes, please.
Okay. Let's bow for a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and this opportunity to gather as the government of Hillsdale County and to gather to conduct the business of the county. Lord, we ask for your guidance and your wisdom in the actions that we take, and may we be reminded that this is for the work of the people of this county. We ask these things in your name. Amen. You join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Our first order is public comment. Anyone on at this time would like to address the board?
Hi, Mark. This is Ruth. I've got public comment.
Go ahead, Ruth.
How you doing?
Fine. How are you this morning?
Good. Couple quick things. Your organizational meeting, the first hour, I don't think the YouTube was working or something like that. And anyway, couldn't watch the meeting until about halfway through. I then later on kept trying to check the website for the minutes of the meeting. I never did see the minutes. Now I didn't check this morning, so maybe they got posted by now. Maybe they're posted, but I checked over the weekend and I checked yesterday, and the minutes of the meeting had not been posted. I had a question on the calendar, and maybe you guys talked about this and I don't know it because I couldn't watch the meeting and I haven't been able to read the minutes, but in April, your meetings are the 1st and 3rd. I thought your meetings were the 2nd and the 4th. Maybe there was a change that I'm not aware of. And then I also became aware that you conducted your voting for your chairman by a secret ballot, which I understand is appropriate by statute, but I would just caution you to maybe take that extra step for open transparency. When you're conducting a meeting that's not on the camera and nobody can watch, and now there's no minutes, and then you conduct a secret ballot, that's not a real good look as far as open transparency is concerned to your constituents. And that's been an issue in District 1. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. As you know, as previous board member, we don't normally engage, but in the effort of transparency, I will indicate that we did have some technical difficulties on that YouTube, and David was going to try and splice in at least the audio part. Don't know that that has been accomplished yet. As far as a secret ballot, any secret ballot is just that, it's secret. And that can't be revealed. And as for the minutes, Jody is out sick and those minutes have not been completed. And as soon as they are, they will be posted. So that's an update for everyone on board. Is there any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll move along to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman.
Please.
There are a couple of items that need to be removed from the consent agenda because, as you just indicated, the minutes are not from our organizational meeting are not available yet. I would move that we approve the consent agenda with the removal of the review and corrected approval of organizational minutes. with the correction in the agenda that 21-012, the commissioner being appointed on that resolution is Commissioner Leininger. And we'll pull 004 and 005 for further discussion by the board.
Okay, where would you like 04 and 05 moved?
Underneath you, Mr. Chairman, as the committee appointments.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else as far as the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
on the, it would be 21004 and 21005 on the language of those. I just would like to clarify that those are recommendations to the Community Action Agency Board. They are not appointments to them on those two positions. Those are the two Community Action Agency appointments.
correct.
And also on 21012, the resolution is correct, but the agenda states Commissioner Benzing and Commissioner Ingalls. I believe that is correctly, and the resolution is correct on 21012, that is Commissioner Leininger.
Okay, give me a minute.
Yes, the agenda, the wording in the resolution is correct. It was just on the printed agenda that had Commissioner Benzing in that, and it should have, if we're going to reference that, it should be Leininger.
It's correct.
Yes, you are correct. So it's just a typo on the agenda itself.
Correct.
Okay, very good.
Question?
Is-
Do you want on 21004 and 5 to both read recommendation? Because I thought we got one commissioner appointment to CAA.
Well, I guess, you want to just deal with 4 and 5 as Commissioner Leininger indicated under the chairman's report?
That would be acceptable to me, Mr. Chair.
Okay, that way we can make any amendments that we need to the language and just move along with the meeting. If I'm hearing everything correct, we've removed the minutes since they are not available. We've moved 04 and 05 down under the commissioner's report, or chairman's report for further discussion. And we've corrected a typo on 21012 to read, to be Commissioner Lane. And it was indicated that it is correct on the resolution, just not on the agenda. Is there any other changes to the consent agenda?
Commissioner Wiley,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, first of all, my camera's not working, but at least you can hear me and I can hear you, so that's good.
I can't
Yep.
see, so.
Yeah, Marnie would ask that you identify yourself because she can't see the screen real well. So when you go to speak, just indicate who is speaking.
Okay, this is Kathy Schmidt.
Yeah, gotcha, Kathy. Go ahead.
All right, on resolution 21017, I emailed you about the difference between what the contract name is versus what the name in the resolution is. Should we pull that down and make those consistent with each other?
We can, if that's your desire.
Well, I know in the contract with Tom Thompson, it is the name of the firm, not the name of the lawyer.
Okay,
I didn't make it.
so we'll pull that down under the chairman as well. That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
All right. If there is nothing else, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
So moved.
Ooh, so moved.
Brent Leininger, Commissioner Leininger.
Thank you.
Commissioner Benzing moves to support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, and we've been doing a roll call with it being virtual.
Yeah.
I got a new person here today. So
All right, so,
roll call.
okay. She hasn't got any of these. Commissioner Ingalls,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Benzing,
Yes.
Commissioner Leininger.
Yes.
Okay, the consent agenda as amended is approved. Thank you. Correspondence is listed. Any comment on correspondence? Hearing none, we'll move to the regular agenda. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Commissioner Schmidt approves or moves to approve the consent agenda. I'm sorry.
The regular agenda.
The regular agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a
Commissioner Leininger, I will support that motion.
Brent. Okay. Is there any additions or corrections other than what we've already done? Hearing none.
Oh, yeah.
Roll call vote on approval of regular agenda.
Okay, Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Benzing,
Yes.
Commissioner Leininger,
Yes.
Commissioner Ingalls.
Yes.
Regular agenda is approved. Thank you. All right, we have nothing on standing order this morning. So we'll go right to committee reports. Brent, you're up first.
Well, good morning, everyone. Just for point of reference, I do believe the Open Meetings Act, when we're participating remotely, does require us to identify where we're participating in. And I am participating from the city of Hillsdale in the county of Hillsdale today for this meeting. Just a couple of updates here on some things that I've learned so far on the items underneath my purview. I do believe at our next meeting, we will be presented with the next meeting or the first meeting in February will be presented by a resolution to approve a memorandum of understanding between the county of Hillsdale and MSU Extension Services for the work that MSU Extension does for the county and the educational services that they do and the 4-H work that they do. So I do believe that, Mr. Commissioner, you could, Wiley, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that that's maybe one of the standing order items for our next meeting. I know that was done a year ago in early, or at the second January meeting. I know there's been some communication between the county and the representative from MSU. I've been working to make contact with all of the boards and committees that I've been appointed to get with them and go over some orientation, some additional learning. And I guess that is all that I have at this time, if anybody would have any questions.
Any questions for Commissioner Leininger? Thank you. And yes, that will, Marnie has reached out to Matt, and that will be on one of the next two agendas. Okay, Marnie's indicated that she's tentatively right now has got him down for the first meeting in February. And that will be for the MSUE and the contract thereof with the county. So, thank you. Public Safety and Judiciary, Mr. Bensing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have the opportunity to attend the Hillsdale County Ambulance Association meeting. You will note under the correspondence that we have received fourth quarter reports from 3 of the 5 ambulance agencies that we contract with. The 2 that we have not are Addison and Hudson. I know that they do have a new chief, or at least an acting chief, Addison, and so he may be getting up to speed on that. At the Ambulance Association, one of the stipulations in our contract is that all of the ambulances have automatic vehicle locators on them, which are then central dispatch can see where those units are at. Reading Emergency Unit and Somerset Ambulance do have that equipment up and operating. Wright Waldron has the equipment, but they are now waiting for Adrian Communication to come and install it in their vehicles. They have actually had it up and running, but they're having to actually use a cell phone as a modem for it. But they do have that equipment. Hudson is waiting, shortages due to coronavirus, and I have no report on Addison's status at this point. I do have the Fire Association meeting coming up later this month, as well as the Emergency Telephone Services Board. I will have reports for you at our next meeting. And that concludes my report unless there are any questions.
Brad, Marnie has a couple questions for clarification for the minutes, please.
Go ahead, clerk.
Commissioner Benzing, so it's your understanding then, taking over this, that you will get a hold of Carol and give her the green light, so to speak, so that she can cut checks to these associations?
That is correct. That's my understanding.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for Mr. Benzing? Okay, thank you. Mr. Ingalls, you are up this morning.
Thank you, Commissioner Wiley. I have a report on the Courthouse Tour. Also, I have been as well outreaching departments and other committees and trying to do a information and learning curve for myself. I have attended and gone to the Road Commission, and I've been spending a lot of time with Randy Finley in maintenance with facilities. Also with Dave Holcomb and his staff. We've got our iPads, and that's greatly appreciated. My report on my tour of the historic courthouse, I have sent all of you an email, and I hope you received it this morning, of the hard copy of what I'm going off of. If you did not get that, please let me know and I will send that to you. The brief outline pretty much has been developed and given to me by Randy. And we spent probably, we were there a couple hours anyway yesterday, from the bottom floor to the top, you know, with a real excellent tour of the renovations as they're going. The brief outline, the history is the original plan was to move the existing employees from the annex and close the annex, put it up for sale. The original plan was to use current courtrooms and make some minor changes, changes like new carpet, partition, walls in a few areas. Original employees would fit into the courthouse. Most offices in the courthouse were moved to the county office building, and the estimated total cost would be $30,000. Several changes have occurred as time has gone, and the scope of the project is different today than it was at the beginning. There's more employees currently than had been planned, with no or limited space to put them. We're putting carpet in all areas, creating a third courtroom, removing a bathroom and support wall to accommodate for the new courtroom, create new office for the judge in the old deeds area, cut a walkway in the masonry wall and deeds to accommodate office changes, cut 2 walkways and vaults to allow judge access to her office without walking in a public area. Also repair courthouse wiring that was discovered when the walls are opened for the remodel. 6 new offices are being created. Remodel of new parole office to meet state requirements. Remodel juvenile office. Remodel judge's bathroom. Flip probate courtroom, one end to the other. And during the course of that remodel, build new counters and judges' benches, make authentic trim to match historical trim, make new walls at probate court with new pass-through doors with card readers, plus all the details that go with the project. And Randy indicated that that was a partial list. The problems that Randy still needs to overcome for this project is that there is not enough room in the courthouse to bring everyone from the annex. They still have more wiring upgrades to make, and that's unknown until they get into some of those walls. Randy himself and his department has had staffing cuts. He lost at least 1 full-time position and has added one that is just a part-time rather than a full-time staff. Funding for the project is in question. Finish date is unknown due to many changes that are still being made. With the estimated total cost at $30,000, spent to date is nearly $80,000. And my observation is there is still quite a substantial number of dollars yet to be needed for this project. When the original intent was to sell the annex, close and sell the annex, it's very difficult to do that now when there are still offices being maintained in that building. So there's many challenges yet and pieces of this puzzle that are in motion that are very difficult to overcome. Randy indicated that he's spent more money than has been allocated by $800 currently, and that he has requested me of $20,000 to keep the program moving. And so I bring this report to you as commissioners and am eager for questions.
There we go. Had to unmute. Any questions for Mr. Ingles?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Leininger. Thank you,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Ingles, for your work that you've done on this, just as we have taken office just less than 2 weeks ago. What do we have an estimated cost from Randy as to what all of these additional changes are going to be for the county?
I can answer that. When I asked that question, it's very difficult to put a total on it right now because the scope of the project has moved as time has gone, and there has not been a final decision on what actually the final version of what will be done. Until there's a final version of what the plan is, it's very difficult to know what the total cost is going to be.
Thank you.
So the chief judge and I spoke this morning on several things, one of which is that building. She indicated to me that she wasn't going to move for any changes. So what is currently in play should be what we have going forward. Some of the things that I'm sure Mr. Ingles knows, and I see Randy's on, is The upstairs courtroom still needs to be flipped east to west. The new probate court room constructed downstairs with a custom-made bench or court bench, if you will. But you are correct that, we don't know how much more wiring we're going to have to replace, and right now is a perfect time to be doing it. Just as a point, Randy told me when I first came on 8 years ago that the wiring in that building was in dire straits. So it is good that we replace it. We'd hate to see this, as you put, Mr. Engels, historic building burned down from faulty wiring. So it would be good if we got some sort of ballpark. So maybe you could work with Randy on getting at least a ballpark figure on what was originally discussed as far as the renovations. The wiring is probably a little bit of a wild card as of yet, but thank you for your work on that.
This is Commissioner Schmidt.
Go ahead, Kathy.
My concern also is when you alluded to that there's more employees in the annex, that there's not enough room in the courthouse to move them. I guess I'd like further clarification on that if that's the case, because if that's the case, then what are we going to do with the annex and how are we going to move forward? So I think this whole program needs to get some things nailed down in writing as to just what is going to happen, knowing that there are some unknowns with the wiring. But my concern is tearing out a supporting wall and a historic courthouse, and how much that's going to take and what's it going to do to the integrity of the building. I'm sure we can do anything if there's enough money, but is that the right thing to do in this instance?
Randy, I see you're on. You want to enlighten the new commissioners on what has been discussed in that respect? Well, maybe he's not there. I can see on my screen that he's on. Randy, can you hear me?
Randy and I, this is Commissioner Engels. Randy and I did talk briefly about the load-bearing wall and what would be required. And it seems that an engineer needs to come in and do an evaluation. And once that engineer does that, then as you say, anything can be done when you throw enough money at it. I don't know what is going to be required, and the engineer is yet to, do his evaluation.
That is correct, Mr. Engels. And Kathy, even when the wall was cut, the engineer looked at that as far as cutting that wall and that doorway in the vault. So, Randy, do you want to address, Randy just walked in, so do you want to address them as far as that wall and that construction in what will be the new probate court?
Sure.
You can come up here if you want.
I didn't have a microphone, right? I answered you downstairs. The decision was made to put in that court. In order to do so, they wanted to increase the size of the courtroom, and the only way to do that was to take out the wall. The wall is a support wall. We did have an engineer come in and look at it, and it's doable. They just want to see now, after they tear out the ceiling, after we tear out the ceiling, then they want to look at it again to see exactly what it is, what it's going to take to brace that up. But I was told by the engineer that that is doable. We just need to get to that point so they can actually see what they're looking at and decide what the best way to brace that wall up. So we don't have the upper floor dropping into the bottom floor. Any questions for me?
Oh, this is Commissioner Schmidt. So when the engineer comes in, is he also going to give an estimate as to the cost? Is that what the plan is?
Well, yeah, once it gets in there, that cost right there is an unforeseen. I really don't know until the engineer looks at it and decides what we're gonna have to do. There's a fireplace there. We may be able to take out that fireplace, we may not. That's an issue. So there's variables that, it's all doable, but it's just variables as far as what we need to do, when we need to do it.
This is Commissioner Leininger. And from my listening here, Randy, it sounds like though that no matter what we do, that with the staffing changes that we have had, that we're still not going to be able to completely close the annex. Am I correct in that assumption?
As it stands right now, it's going to be a while before we can do that. And in addition to that, it was brung up, there's not enough spaces over here for all those people. So that needs to be addressed.
This is Commissioner Ingalls. Another concern, Randy, that you did bring up to me that I did not mention is that during the course of the renovation, maintenance in other buildings is still being required, which pulls staff away from renovation project or pulls staff away from maintenance that needs to be done on the 15 buildings that you take care of.
That's correct. We have snow plow, when we have snow, we're off for snow plowing and icing and all that. When we get into the grass season, we have one person tied up on that full time. So we don't have the staff that we once did have in order to take care of the situation. So it is sketchy right at the moment.
Okay. Thanks, Randy.
Yep.
Oh. All right. I suspect somewhere in the near future, since personnel issues are the chair and the vice chair, we probably need to have a meeting with the chief judge and find out what's going on with personnel. From the standpoint that some of those people were added over there without our knowledge. And so the intention all along, and I think Mr. Ingalls alluded to it, is that building, once we completed the renovations, was going to be sold. And I've said that from the very first, that we were not going to increase our footprint as far as owning brick and mortar. And so the other thing was we're counting on money from the sale of that building to replace some of the money used for the remodeling of the courthouse. So there's a lot of things that come into play in regards to that building. So, but is there any further discussion on this at this time? It's good discussion. I appreciate your update, Doug.
Well, you're very welcome. It seems though that the update is fine, but we need to hammer out and pin down some details so that we can either create a budget or decide, how the progress is going to continue. So, I would encourage commissioners to have their own tour so that they can see. In fact, many of the rooms, are quite disrupted right at the moment due to the construction. And, the time frame of, even if we had space to move people from the annex, it's not possible at this time because of the construction that is ongoing in that building. So the timeline is and the money is in question.
All right. Very good. lot of work to do in that area, so. That brings us up to Commissioner Schmidt. What do you have for us this morning, Kathy?
As Doug stated, I've been doing the same in the sense reaching out to department heads and elected officials and meeting with them, getting names and faces together. Had some of those same discussions about, money that might be, available to move the courthouse project forward and get the annex emptied and sold. So kind of had some conversations about that. I am planning on meeting with Judge Lisney on Thursday and getting a tour of the courthouse. So that will be a informational tour as to the status of where things are and how things are looking. In addition to that, I did go to a couple of my township meetings, Scipio and Litchfield. I do know during our Scipio township meeting, there was concern expressed about our commissioners' meetings not being in person, concerns about residents who don't have internet and or smartphones. So I don't know if the postings on the door include the phone number that they can call to participate in the meetings or not. But if that number is not posted with the posting of the meeting, I think maybe we need more clarification, communication of how residents can participate in the meetings that we have. And other than that, I think that's about all I had. I'm good.
So as far as phone number and all that information, I believe I'd have to double check today, but I know David has been putting that information as far as the meeting on the door as well as on the web page. I know I've communicated with the radio. We've attempted to do the best we can to make sure everyone's got the ability to either call in or be on virtually. So I would recommend, Kathy, that your tour with the judge on Thursday, that you invite Randy along. I'm sure he would appreciate that as well.
Duly noted.
Thank you. Any questions for Kathy? Okay. Well, we'll take up the action items that were moved down first. And I had one other action item, and then we'll get into the other items under the commissioner or under the chair's report. So 04, I'll have to read it in its entirety. We'll have to treat it as such as far as support and discussion, et cetera. So Resolution 21-004 to the Honorable Board of Commissioners. We recommend the following commissioner be appointed to the Community Action Agency Committee as follows. Named Brad Benzane, first appointed 1/12 of 2021, term of appointment, partial 2-year term expiring 12/31 of 2021. Respectfully submitted, Mark Wiley, Chairman. I move for adoption.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Leininger. I will support that motion.
Thank you. Discussion, please.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Leininger again.
Yes.
I would move for the amendment of that resolution. The amendment would include striking, in other words, for appointed to be, or be appointed, and inserting the words for appointment to the Community Action Agency. And if that's a partial 2-year term, should that not be I think you said 2021, but should that not be 2022 for the expiration of that term?
I don't know if they're staggered or not.
I think Marnie believes it's staggered, so that would be a partial,
Okay, understand.
yeah,
But I can't verify that, Commissioner Leininger, without checking probably with CAA.
right.
So got that. So the wording would read, we recommend the following commissioner for appointment to the Community Action Agency Committee.
Okay, so you're changing
Be appointed.
be appointed to,
For appointment,
yep,
because the Community Action Agency Board, per their bylaws and the, do believe federal statute, they actually make the appointment to that board. We can recommend someone for that appointment.
correct.
Commissioner Wiley, I second that motion as amended. This is Commissioner Ingalls.
Okay, thank you. So we've got a amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment? We'll need to vote on the amendment and then we'll vote on the resolution as amended. So,
Commissioner Wiley,
yes,
Commissioner Benzing,
Yes.
Commissioner Leininger,
Yes,
Commissioner Ingalls,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
the amendment passes. Is there further discussion on the resolution as amended? Hearing none, we'll vote on the resolution as amended as a whole. All those, roll call.
Commissioner Benzing,
Yes.
Commissioner Leininger,
yes,
Commissioner Ingalls,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley.
Yes. Thank you. That takes care of that one. 21005 to the Honorable Board of Commissioners. We recommend the following commissioner be appointed to the Community Action Agency Committee as follows. Brent Manger, first appointed 1/12/2021. Term of appointment is 2-year expiring 12/31/2022. Respectfully submitted, Mark Wiley, Chairman. I move for adoption.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Leininger. I would second that motion.
Thank you. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Leininger again.
Go ahead.
I would again move for the amendment of the language with the striking of the words be appointed and the insertion of for appointment to the Community Action Agency.
This is Commissioner Ingalls. I second.
Thank you. Is there discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, we'll vote on the amendment.
Commissioner Leininger,
Yes,
Commissioner Ingalls,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Benzing.
Yes.
All right. That was the amendment, correct?
Yes, now we're voting on it as a whole.
Okay, so now as the resolution as amended in its entirety, is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote.
Commissioner Ingalls,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes,
Commissioner Benzing,
Yes.
Commissioner Leininger,
yes,
passes 5-0. Thank you. That was a good catch, and an easy correction, I believe. And we should know on those or which one of you are appointed, hopefully within the next week. So, okay, the other one that was pulled down was 017. And to the Honorable Board of Commissioners, we recommend the chairperson of Hillsdale County Board of Commissioners be authorized to sign a 1-year family court, probate, and juvenile legal services contract between Hillsdale County and Roderick R. Dunham, attorney at law, for a yearly sum not to exceed as follows: 36,000 per year, 3,000 per month, January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021. Respectfully submitted, Clerk Wiley, Chairman. I move for adoption.
Commissioner Schmidt, second.
Thank you. Discussion?
My discussion is I would think, to be consistent, that we would amend the motion to strike Roderick R. Dunham, attorney, and insert Dunham and Grassy PC, attorneys at law.
But it is Rod Dunham that will be hearing the cases.
So how,
Right. So you would like the resolution to read the same as the contract, basically.
yes. Now, and I guess I do that based on, if you look at the legal services, in the next resolution, we use the name of the firm, not just the attorney.
Okay.
Because attorneys hear the cases.
So in the case of Lovinger Thompson, which you refer to, which we'll get to momentarily,
Right.
they both hear cases and assist. In the case of Dunham, he is the only one of that practice that hears them. So my recommendation would be is that we leave his name in the resolution, but after his name, you have a comma, and then you insert Dunham and Grassi, PC, attorneys at law. And that would line up with your contract.
Yep, that would be fine.
Okay, if you're acceptable with that, we've already made a substitute.
Okay.
Because I did share your email, Commissioner, with Marnie, so she brought that as a substitute.
All right. So do you need something for me to change my amendment, or what do you need from me?
Well, I don't think we had a second, did we? Or did we?
Chairman, I will,
Commissioner Schmidt seconded it, your original motion,
Okay,
and she wanted it to reflect this, which she's agreeable to. So
so we hadn't actually got a support on your amendment yet, Kathy, so you could change your amendment to read what I just indicated.
Well, then I propose that we amend it to read as Commissioner Wiley stated.
Okay, for the record, just so everybody is clear, you'd have Roderick R. Dunham, comma, Dunham and Grassi, PC, attorneys at law, in the resolution. That would match up with the language in the contract. So,
Commissioner, or Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Leininger. I will support that amendment.
thank you. I was about ready to ask for support, so very good, very good. Is there discussion, questions, or comments? Hearing none, we'll vote on it as amended. So,
Question,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, you would need to vote on the amendment first, because we've not passed the amendment.
right. So we're voting on the amendment to change that particular language that I just read a minute ago. Go ahead.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Benzing? Commissioner Benzing?
Yes.
Commissioner Leininger?
Yes.
Commissioner Ingalls?
Yes.
Okay, the amendment is approved. Thank you. Now the entire resolution as a whole, is there further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote on the entire resolution as amended.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Benzing,
Yes.
Commissioner Leininger,
Yes.
Commissioner Ingalls,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Yes.
All right, that passes, thank you. And I will read 19 here momentarily. 21019, to the Honorable Board of Commissioners, we recommend the chairperson of Hillsdale County Board of Commissioners be authorized to sign a one-year probate court legal services contract between the County of Hillsdale and Lovitzer Thompson PC for the sum not to exceed the following: $10,500 per year, $875 per month, January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021, respectively submitted. Mark Wiley, Chair. I move for adoption.
Move to approve.
Kathy,
Schmidt.
thank you. Is there discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll vote.
Commissioner Benzing,
Yes.
Commissioner Leininger,
Yes.
Commissioner Ingalls,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley.
Yes. Passes 5-0. Thank you. All right. That takes care of the action items under my report. We'll jump into the bylaws update, and I will turn the floor over to Commissioner Leininger and Commissioner Schmidt.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kathy, do you want to take this or you want me to go off? Or,
Go ahead, Brent.
okay, well, I want to thank Kathy for taking 5 hours out of her day the other night to meet with me and review some of these items that we had presented for the board's consideration. In the email that I sent out to the board members after that, I indicated that for the most part, what we're seeing in this revision is what Commissioner Schmidt and I were able to agree to. There were a few items that we still needed some more clarification, and on the first one being the term of office for the chairperson, I have not had a chance to get into the commissioner room off of the conference room at the county office building yet to review past resolutions to see if there was action taken on that. One of the things that I indicated, I believe in that email to you fellow commissioners, is that it has been past practice of the Board of Commission, at least since 2005, in their rules and procedures to limit the term of the chairperson to a one-year term. In reviewing the statute that changed that in January 2001 required that change be done by resolution of the board. And so we're hoping that there is a resolution on that somewhere to be found. If not, the question that Kathy and I would probably propose to go to legal counsel is, if it was done in the past by the board passing their rules and procedures, if we codify that now in a resolution, is that effective now or not until the future? So that was the one thing. I think I included in that email and a copy of the language as far as underneath the chairperson in Article 2, number 7, regarding the emergency management coordinator services, and I had come up with some language on that. It's actually 2.1B. I got to get the right copy. Where I had Commissioner Wiley had sent me some information that he had received from Doug Sanford regarding that, and so I had shared with Mr. Sanford the language that we were proposing changing, and Mr. Sanford sent back what he would like to see for a change in that language, and I do believe I had included that in the copy that we sent to everybody, which really, it does coincide with the language in the 46 or the 3410 statute of the law. I'm looking at a bad copy of this. Here. Sorry, I've got too many copies of that rough draft on that. A couple of things that Schmidt and I, and as indicated, could not agree to, and we would bring back to this board for consideration and to make the decision on, were where's that at? Yeah, it's in the underneath on number 5.5A, the 2/3 vote of the members of the board. To add items to the agenda at a board meeting or to suspend any of the rules. And I'm pulling suspension rule from Robert's Rules of Order. But those were a couple of things. Excuse me while I look at the email. Kathy, do you remember the other one right off the top of your head? The 6.4 was a little discussion. What was the other one, Kathy?
I'm looking at the draft you sent out, and it's those things that are in italics that were the things that we wanted more clarification on from the board as to which way they would prefer to go.
Yeah.
On page 3 of that document, one of the first things we talked about was whether in signing motions, we were going to add the clerk per statute, but were we also going to include the committee chairperson, or we were just going to have the chairman of the board and the clerk sign?
Correct. Yep. Thank you for that.
So that was that one. And then the next one that I saw was 5.2 on page 7. We talked about the electronic meeting, and
Yep.
whether in a regular meeting, if commissioners could, if we have a quorum in person, whether a commissioner could join via an electronic medium, phone, computer. I don't know if we're going to talk about in the Opens Meeting Act, because I know when you and I looked at that, it looked like statute or the Opens Meeting Act or the subsequent rules, amendments to the Open Meetings Act, that they made it maybe more restrictive, that you had to be in person unless you were from the military or some such thing.
Correct. And I guess what the proposed language on that would, we're just going to codify that we're going to follow the rules of the Open Meetings Act as we know right now in the state legislature. That's kind of a moving target that is here today and maybe different tomorrow. And some of the communication that we have received from Cole Stoker, even on that, says that, right now through, I do believe, March 31st, that we can have a virtual meeting for any reason. I do believe that OMA statute says from April 1st to December 31st of this year, it's for medical reasons, for increased health exposure issues, in addition to the military service. But that one communique from Cole Stoker indicates that after December 31st of this year, the only reason to participate in a meeting remotely is due to active military service. And so, not trying to put all of that verbiage in there, just saying that on that 5.2 that we want to comply with the OMA, and as far as remote meetings, we're going to make sure that we adhere to those statutes.
Then on page 8, the other item on number 3, public comment, Brent wanted to add agenda items only for the first public comment, item number 3. I was of the opinion that we didn't need to make it more restrictive. Again, flavor of the board on that one. Number 10 on page 8, I didn't, to add items to the agenda at the board meeting, would take a 2/3 vote. I'm not so sure we needed to add that one. And then we had, it went to 5.5B. There were quite a bit of discussion there about deletions and then the addition of 5.1.
I think, right on 5 point, so we were proposing to, or eliminate 5.5C and just say, because there are certain statutes out there that require a majority of the members elect and serving for passage of certain action by the Board of Commissioners. And 5.5C says on certain things, we only had to have a majority of the members present at a meeting. So if we had only 3 members present at a meeting due to illness, virtual computer issue problems, personally, I would rather see us just say, if we're going to take any action, we need at least a majority of the board that's serving, not just a majority of those present. So I would like to see us eliminate the 5.5C and just say, for any other action, we're going to require the majority of the members serving, which would be at least 3. Unless we had unless we had the resignation of 2 commissioners, then we would only have 3 commissioners. So then it would only have to require 2 members to vote on something. So yes, again, commissioners, that was our discussion, and I think for the most part we had agreed to the majority of the other stuff. There was one thing on the committees towards the end, the union special committee. We had a little bit of discussion at our last meeting about the finance committee and the statute on a statutory finance committee requiring 3 members of a board of commission in a county with a population under 75,000. We said we didn't really want to do that, but as I read the language here with this union special committee, it has 3 members appointed to that committee. So I'm not even sure what that committee does with the personnel committee taking care of the negotiations. So again, we would consider the removal of that from the language. And then, like I said, 6.4 for some discussion here in a little bit. And I know, Commissioner Wiley, you had underneath your action items some discussion maybe on if we need a resolution or a policy requiring certain board appointments to be required to report back to the board. And I wonder if we need that in another document, or if we should just include something like that in. And I do believe section 3, where we talk about those board appointments to other boards and commissions. So if we can just maybe add some language there that says if you're a public individual, you potentially shall report back to the board of commission on your actions in that appointment.
Yeah, I'd be amicable to some language in that. I believe you said section 3.
Yeah, section 3 is where we talk about those appointments to boards and commissions.
Right.
And so I guess if we're going to talk about, we're going to appoint somebody to the Lifeways board or the emergency planning committee, or some of those other boards and commissions that we include in there, that that you can be required to report to the board on your actions as part of your appointment to that board or committee.
I think if you and Kathy wanted to come up with some language and just email it out, that would be fine. That would serve the purpose. Then we just, whatever committee chair that particular committee fell under, they would be responsible for reaching out to those citizen appointments.
A little bit of other discussion that Commissioner Schmidt and I had was regarding the Open Meetings Act and whether the OMA requires committee meetings of the board to be posted the same as a meeting of the Board of Commission. Some lengthy discussion between the two of us on that. And maybe something that we want, even the OMA language or the remote participation meeting there, as Kathy discussed, we would like to see that section sent to legal counsel for guidance, and potentially even the question on posting of committee meetings for some clarification on that. And I think Mr. Commissioner Wiley, you have already got some clarification on the clerk issue regarding 46.2 MCL 46.29 regarding the resolutions or actions of the board.
Yes. Talked to Mr. Thompson yesterday. First and foremost, he'll be expecting something from us later today or tomorrow to review. And he'll be happy to review it for us and recommend, his legal expertise on it. Second of all, as you indicated, 46.29, as far as the clerk having to sign the documents, he says that what he told me yesterday on the phone was that is consistent with the statute. I did indicate to Commissioner Leininger that that could be done by a stamp when they are logged in. I guess we'd have to work that out with the clerk as to how she wants to proceed, or if she just wants to have her signature block on there along with the chairman's. So.
Yeah, and like Commissioner Schmidt said, the question of should we continue to include the chairperson of the committee who brings that resolution before the board. You'll notice that in that language there, and that is, I forget the exact section here, the rules where that's at. We did not say the county clerk, we just said the clerk, because there's another statute that says the clerk to the board is the county clerk or their deputy while they're serving as the clerk. So in that act, in that regard, it technically, as I read the statute, it does not have to be the county clerk. It could be any of the clerk's deputies that are serving as the clerk to this board at the time. Commissioner Benzing had asked me yesterday about something, and I'm sorry, Commissioner Benzing, I looked at that after I got home from another meeting late last night, and I could not find that section that you were talking about. Because you had asked if something should be in there or be removed, but I didn't even see it in here as far as the transportation policy.
Okay, that I believe, Commissioner Leininger, that was in regards to reimbursements. I think I would have to locate the section, but there is I believe a line in there about using the county vehicle whenever possible. And you and I had discussed in regards to personal vehicle use. In particularly, I know that we do have an underlying county policy in regards to that. I'm just asking that line be struck from
Yes.
rules.
And I see that now. That's in the underneath 1.6. That's in the second paragraph. There's language there towards the end of that. And so, yes. And as in my profession and avocation, I have the habit of making multiple stops whenever I go someplace. Kill two birds with one stone. So yes, that's something that is of concern to myself, because if I need to go to Coldwater for a Board of Health meeting, there's a good chance I've got multiple personal customers of mine that I could stop at on the way there or on the way back, and just try and, limit that cost to the county as much as possible, and be able to continue to serve my constituency. And that is something that Kathy and I did not discuss on that paragraph. One of the items we had discussed at our organizational meeting is regarding the compensation, and we were able to find the actual resolution on that, and you'll notice that that's referenced there in section 1.6, Hillsdale County Board of Commissioners Resolution 13-110, that changed the pay for commissioners. Again, still need to hopefully find some resolution from back when the board would have acted in 2001 regarding the chairmanship position. And the other thought that I had, Commissioner Wiley, regarding whether the clerk signs every resolution, the clerk to the board. The other thought I had is, and we discussed this a little bit last month regarding the minutes of the board and how the minutes are presented. I do believe the clerk signs the minutes of the board meeting along with the chairman. And, I mentioned that some of our neighboring counties include all of the resolution verbiage in the minutes of the board. And I know that would be extremely time consuming for the clerk staff to do. But, the true record of the action of the board is not the resolution itself, but it's the minutes from our meetings. And so if we, potentially as a workaround, consider including that resolution verbiage in our minutes, then by the clerk signing the minutes, they are, by definition, I would contend, signing the resolution.
Yeah. So
Again, maybe something for legal direction on that as well.
well, we can certainly ask legal on that, but I do know the official document is probably 3 times the size of a regular sheet of paper, and everything's recorded, and then, yes, the clerk and I sign, but we've only got limited storage for those, and if you end up putting the resolution verbiage in its entirety on those documents, we're gonna have 2 or 3 of these huge pages for just one meeting.
Yep. So again, so there was those, okay,
Yep.
So if we went through those, again, we feel that 1.6 and the 2.1a need some clarification, maybe some direction from legal counsel. So if we go to the kind of that next one, that 5.2, the quorum, again, that's something, Kathy, would you agree that we want some legal direction on that before we make a decision? Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Okay, 5.2, the quorum. Would you say that we want some legal counsel direction on that before we make a final decision?
That one, again, it's that moving target. So yeah, I guess my question when we discussed this is with all the changes to the Open Meetings Act, have they truly made it more restrictive to have one member meet via a virtual means when the board is in session in quorum? So that's kind of where I was coming from. Now, if we don't want language regarding having commissioners attend virtually when everyone else is in session, I guess we could just delete it and go with pursuant to the Opens Meeting Act. So again, flavor of the board on that one.
Commissioner Wiley,
Go ahead, please.
this is Commissioner Ingalls. I have several comments. When is the correct time to go through my comments?
Go right ahead. We're in the discussion mode on this.
Alrighty. So, sort of top to bottom on what I'm thinking is, past practice, essentially is establish a procedure on chairman for 1 year, and I would agree with that, past practice. As far as virtual attendance for commissioners as needed, when in-person meetings are occurring, I think the technology has enabled us to be able to do that. I think that there's a variety of reasons that could come up where a commissioner may individually not be able to attend a meeting in person, but is able to attend virtually. I think that is appropriate. As far as public comment goes, for the 2 times when we have public comment, I think each public comment should be open for any item, whether it's agenda or not. We have typically very few people that want a public comment, and I think that in the future, if we have, if that changes, then we can adjust our policy. But in the meantime, I think that giving the public the most opportunity for public comment is better rather than restrictive. As far as agenda items added, I think that we have 5 commissioners, not 20, and that typically we don't have many agenda items added. I think that if a commissioner has an item he would like to add to the agenda, that's fine. As far as the majority of commissioners voting, I think that we should consistently and only have 3 commissioners to require approval, unless there are 2 vacancies, and we only have 3 commissioners. That would change my opinion on 3 voting commissioners. As far as committee meetings being Open Meeting Act, if a committee meeting is a work session that does not come to a vote of decision, but comes to a recommendation that goes to the board meeting is Open Meeting Act, and that's where the vote would occur. I think work sessions as committees are fine without Open Meeting Act. I don't think, unless I'm wrong, that they are Open Meeting Act. I think that if they are not voting to a decision, they are recommending to the board then is the vote. And then as far as personal use of a vehicle, I prefer to use my vehicle. And if I have to be restricted to using a county vehicle, I think that that would change some of my attendance. Personally, I would rather drive my own car. And those are the comments that I have at this time.
Mr. Chair.
So I guess just as a point of information, the county went to a county vehicle a year and a half ago, probably a year and a half ago or some such a matter. And a lot of our vehicles now are fleet vehicles through Enterprise. It was found to be cheaper in the long run than it was to own vehicles. So they're basically leased vehicles. The intent, if you will, of using the county car for meetings was primarily out of the county type meetings. So, if for instance, I've used the car when I've gone down to Williams County to Bryan, Ohio for the meetings with the Michigan, or the Meshendo Aquifer. Drove it over to Three Rivers. The health department meets once a year over to Three Rivers. I know the other commissioners get to go to Lansing or to Chelsea for other meetings. So just as a point of information, it's, unless you're choosing to use your own vehicle and not claim mileage, which is entirely your prerogative, using the county vehicle is encouraged when you go out of county. So, but all good comments, Doug. Brent and Kathy, do you have anything else at this time, or does anyone else have a comment?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
Commissioner Benzing, going to go through those things. And first, I would like to thank Commissioner Leininger and Commissioner Smith for their work on this. I too, on 1-7, would address the historical perspective of the one-year term for the chair, and I would encourage the board to continue that policy. Especially in this year, we have a relatively new board, and to have the option and availability after a year to make that decision if they want to keep the current chair or do something and go in a different direction, I think is a good policy. And so I would encourage that we keep our current policy on that. Going on to 1-8 under powers and duties, and I know that we had some discussion at our organizational meeting about just referencing resolutions or MCLs. I'm just wondering about, for the sake, we do have a policy in regards to purchasing. We also have a policy in regards to the disposal of county property, and I'm just wondering if those are appropriate in our board rules or they are addressed in other places in county policy, and if we retain those or not. So I think that's just a clarification thing. Moving on to Article 2, under Item 3, in regards to the signatory of all recommended resolutions, I would encourage the board to, at very least, keep the introducer of the motion. We are creating public record from a historical perspective. I'm sure that there are people who have come to the county records and researched for histories of their family, and I think that it is a very nice thing that when we have those people who have decided to run for and hold public office, I think that at some point in the future, their family might be interested to be able to not just see their names in the rolls and the minutes, but also to see their signature on those items. And so I would like, just from a historian perspective, like to see that we continue to retain the introducer of those motions. I have no objection to the chairperson and the clerk signing those as well. I've seen resolutions from the 83 counties across the state. They all vary. Some counties, they actually have the A's and nays on that recorded. I don't know that we need to do that, but I would like to see us continue to have the introducer of those motions. Moving down to 7 on that, with the language about the chief executive under PA 390. I did have a question, and this probably is a question that would be best answered by legal counsel. But it says, under a declared state of emergency, we all might recall that there has been some significant litigation on that. Those state of emergency under the 1976 Act, they are limited to 28 days unless the legislature acts. And so I would just like some clarification. Is that state of emergency for that 28 days as declared by the governor? Is that a state of emergency as declared by the chairperson of the Board of Commissioners? And is there any limitation, a time limit on that? And if there is, I would like to see that reference.
Commissioner Benzing,
Yes.
if I may interject here, the 30.410 does deal specifically with that, and answers, I think, specifically the questions that you raised there. It is the chief executive official underneath that act, and then that language that can declare a local state of emergency. And the language there limits that declaration to 7 days
7 days.
unless extension is granted by the governing body of the entity. So in dealing with county government, that extension would have to be granted by this Board of Commission
All right.
past the 7 days. And that is the statute that Commissioner Wiley used last spring when he did declare the local state of emergency for the county.
All right. Thank you for that clarification, Commissioner. Moving on down to 2.2, I think that it's just a formatting, and it's under item 3, serving on the intra-county drain board when the county commissioner chairperson, I believe that should read county commission chairperson is disqualified. And again, I think that's just a minor spelling correction there. Moving on to Article 331, we had some discussion earlier about the Community Action Agency Board. I would suggest that we strike that because that is not an appointment. We are simply making that recommendation. I appreciate the discussion on 5.2 on the quorum. And again, I agree with Commissioner Smith that I think that we probably need to get legal clarification on that to make sure that we are in conjunction. I do know that this has been a long topic of discussion by a number of boards. I know that it is very common practice in some of the state level boards that meet because they meet over very wide areas. And so I just wanted to make sure that whatever we do, that we maintain the widest opportunity for every member of this board to participate. I know previously that Commissioner Burke and I participated remotely when we were at a conference together in northern Michigan, and we were unable to change the meeting of the board to allow for us to attend that. Moving on down to page 8. I am also in agreement with Commissioner Ingalls and Commissioner Schmidt regarding our first public comment. I would like to see public comment simply to be on any item that the public wishes to speak on. In particularly, we had not only discussion at our organizational meeting, but many cases before about the time at which our board meets. In order for the public, if they are going to physically attend our meeting, they are taking time out of their workday or business day. And so yeah, I feel it is an imposition if we ask the public to sit through our 2 or 2.5 hour meeting to get to the second public comment at the end. If they have something that's on their mind that they want to address the board, I think giving them the opportunity at the very beginning of our meeting, they can speak. And then if they wish to leave, then they have the opportunity and openness to address the board. And so I would encourage us to simply leave that as a public comment and not an agenda item only. Moving down further on page 8, item 9 under 5.5a, to hire or extend the contract of a county controller or county administrator or to terminate the position. I understand the root cause of or root reason for that. The MCLs, they actually designate a county controller because they have significantly more power than a county administrator or county manager. And while I understand the rationale and reasoning, I stand very, very strongly in my opposition to Hillsdale County ever adopting a county administrator or county manager or county controller. But the reason why that is stated as that is to reflect the MCL. It is not part of the MCL in regards to hiring a county administrator. And so we might just want to take a look at the language on that and delineate the two, because the MCL does apply only to the position of county controller.
You're talking MCL 46.13B.
All right.
Sorry, Commissioner.
And then moving a little bit further on down to item 11, to suspend any of the rules. And I do understand how that relates to Roberts. Just wanted to point out that it is common practice that the board chair will, especially under public comment, that they will say is that it is not our policy to interact with the public, but they will make an exception. So if we are going to make in our rules that we do not, and I believe there's a section further on down in public comment about that, that we do not engage with the public on that, then if we are going to have that in there and to be consistent, then I believe that we should have a vote to suspend the rules if we are going to engage with the public. If not, I would say simply that we strike number 11 to suspend any of these rules, because simply just makes it a little bit easier to allow for that. And I guess I just referenced again in item 3 on page 10, under that, in regards to engaging with the board with my comments previously. And we already covered under the county vehicle. I too, that I prefer to use my own vehicle. I also would like to raise a concern that if we were, in particularly in traveling to the MAC conference, we have done this before in riding together, that we just want to make sure that if we are using that county vehicle, that we only have 2 commissioners and not 3 in that, just simply to avoid any taint whatsoever, that they might be holding a meeting outside of the public view, posted meeting. So if we are going to continue to have that policy in regards to using that, if we are using that, especially in regards to the MAC conference or other conferences, that we make sure that we only have two commissioners in that vehicle at a time. And so that would simply put it in a place where the other 3 would, if they elected to go, that they would have to find an alternate means of transportation. So again, I think that it speaks that just using their own vehicle, and if they decide to ride share, I would leave that up to the individual commissioner. And I believe that completes my comments on the board rules. Thank you again.
So Commissioner Wiley, if I could here for a minute, so just going through here, so Commissioner Benson, you would like to see Community Action Agency removed from the appointments of boards and commissions, 3.1. Understand your reasoning on that. The clarification of the language on 2.2, Vice Chairman, letter 3, Chairman of the Board of Commission. As far as the chairperson, which is referenced in, I do believe there's a few sections here where that's at, the 1.7 and the 2.1. Again, that's something that I have not had time to review the prior resolutions, but that's something that I think we need to go to council on, specifically if there has not been a passed resolution, because the statute says it must be done by resolution. And so again, the question that I would have for that council is, it's not been done by resolution in the past, it's been done by board rules. Can we now enact that by resolution and have it be effective immediately? Getting the flavor of the board here, as Commissioner Schmidt indicated we wanted to do before we move to adopt any of these changes. So my take here then is that the majority of the board would like to see numbers 10 and 11 underneath 5.5A, the 2/3 vote of the members struck from those proposed changes.
Yep.
Okay. The 5.131, as far as public meetings of board, and that's something that I think we need legal direction on. Some of the stuff from MAC and MSU Extension on education for county government indicates one thing. I did read something the other day on an attorney general opinion that is contradictory to that. So again, I think we want our legal counsel to say, do committee meetings have to be posted? And if so, this is the reasoning for that. And the same thing regarding the quorum and the remote participation. My idea on that is we want to make sure that we're compliant with the law. We can't, we have to comply with the law no matter what we do. We have to comply with the law. And like I said, with some of those changes that the legislature has enacted in the last 4 months regarding the Open Meetings Act, I think it's very important that we, I don't want to have to be coming back to these rules every time that the legislature makes a change to the statute. I just want to say, we're going to have a quorum, going to be a majority of the members, and we're going to comply with it, because right now our quorum is, we're all participating remotely in this meeting. And so if the legislature changes the Open Meetings Act to continue to allow that, I want to make sure that we just say, hey, as far as quorum and participation, I guess my thought on that section is that we're just going to follow the Open Meetings Act, as it may be amended. So I would,
either Kathy or Brent, and I was, we've been talking about a lot of things. I'd like to regress to 5.10. I missed where we were going with that particular item, please.
510, just a minute here, Commissioner. Okay, all right. And again, I think you're talking about the stricken 510 or the new 510?
Well, which one are you proposing? I guess I missed.
Well, I would propose to strike the 510 because we're adopting that we're going to follow Robert's Rules of Order, and Robert's Rules of Order does not require the motion to withdraw is done in a manner that the person who made the motion would move to withdraw the motion. The only time that per Robert's Rules of Order that it's not withdrawn is if there's a somebody in the body that would dispute or be against that, and then the motion to withdraw is put to a vote of the body. And so, when we go coming down to 511, you'll notice that the motion to withdraw is there in order of priority per Robert's Rules of Order is number 7 down there. And I didn't bring my Robert's Rules of Order revision or copy today, or don't have that with me to share with you at some point in time. Commissioner Wiley, that is at my office if you want to see that as far as that procedure. And the 510, that was something that I had proposed. Commissioner Schmidt would be against that, and I think the flavor of the majority of you would be against that as well. So that could be stricken as well.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
And so then what is 511 would change to 5.10.
Commissioner Wiley, I propose that Brent and I reconvene, clean this copy up again, and maybe get clarification from Tom Thompson. I'm assuming we can call him to just kind of get an idea on the 2 issues being posting of the committee meetings and the 1-year term for the board chair. If we could kind of get guidance on that from him, then come back with a clean copy, either if we get the information together at the next meeting or the following meeting, and then after you guys agree to that clean copy, then put it towards legal for the legal to look it over and see if we've dotted our I's and crossed our T's.
Unless there's any objection, I'm amicable to that. The only comment I would make is you and Brent can also come up with language as Brent alluded to earlier regarding appointees, you know, to the boards or committees reporting to the board on some sort of, you know, quarterly basis or something.
As required by the board, or as requested at the
Yes.
as requested at the discretion of the board.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Benzing.
thank you. In speaking to that particular item in regards to reporting to the board, and I made notes on your discussion item on that. My concern, in particularly with the Lifeways Board, because they are actually a governmental creation and authority, and they are also governed very heavily by the mental health code. I know that one of the things that I discovered as a Lifeways board member is that I had actually tried to decline receiving my per diem from them and be paid by the county because I was representing the interest of the county. However, I was told by Lifeways legal counsel that was not the case, that a board member is representing the legal interests of Lifeways and therefore is paid by Lifeways. So I just have some concerns, and it might be just one of those things in speaking to that language that we want to make sure that we legally can compel someone to report to the board, and particularly when we are talking about one of those governmental creations and authority, because we have appointments to several authorities, and if we can actually compel them to report to the board.
Point well taken, Commissioner Benzing. One of the statutes, I was reading the 4611 a little bit this morning, and it does say that the board has authority to require reports, but only from those people that are compensated by the board. So point well taken, and something that, yes, we'll have to look into a little further.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other comments before we turn this over or back to Kathy and Brent to clean up and continue working? Okay, well, I will provide Kathy and Brent with Mr. Thompson's email and phone number after the meeting, and they'll continue their good work on this. So go ahead, Brent. Hey, Brent, you're muted.
Thank you, sir. The last thing on number 6.4, and to me, this comes back to the committee discussion with legal regarding committee has to be posted or not. Because if a committee has to be posted, then it has to comply with the OMA regarding minutes and distribution of minutes from that meeting as well. And just my concern that potentially the language here would preclude a committee from releasing its minutes from a meeting, which might be in violation of the OMA. So that's on 6.4. That's, again, going to be dependent as to what that legal advice is from counsel on committee meetings.
Point taken. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, thank you for all that work. All right. So once again, under my report, bylaws we've got, and we've taken care of the policy to some extent. Kathy and Brent will further look into that as far as appointees reporting to the board. So the last item I have that is written anyways is the screeners and the status of the buildings. Currently, we've been operating with the doors locked by appointment, and we have the screeners in play through the end of the month. I talked to Derek a couple of days, well, yesterday maybe it was. But there is some money in the contingency fund. It's approximately $7,000 a month for the 3 screeners at our 3 main buildings. Not per building, but total of $7,000 per month. We are still in a pandemic. We're still, operating at best practices. I guess I would recommend that we go with the screeners through the end of March. I guess I'll open it up for discussion. Let me add before anybody jumps in, if you would, I've been having monthly department and elected conference calls or Zoom or WebEx meetings. And a lot of the folks have been very supportive of the screeners in those discussions. So I think in fairness to the employees, it is a good idea and has been a good idea, but I'll open it up for discussion as to how much longer we continue with the screeners, please. Any comments?
Mr. Chair,
Thank you, Mr. Benzing.
thank you. For the purpose of discussion, I will make a motion that Hillsdale County terminate the contract with the screening company effective the end of January 2021.
Mr. Chairman, I second that motion by Commissioner Benzing.
We have a motion to terminate the contract at the end of January made by Mr. Benzing, supported by Mr. Engels. We are open to discussion.
Commissioner Benzing, your motion in this regard just currently deals with that contract that has been signed and you just want to terminate that as of January 31st. We're still maybe going to discuss the opening of the county office further, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So my motion is we are discussing the screeners right now, and in order to discuss an item, we do have to have a motion, and that was the reason for my motion.
Thank you for that clarification.
Any comments on the
Commissioner Wiley, I know initially when this contract was entered into last year, there was some COVID anticipation initially of some COVID funds coming in to cover that. Did that happen? Was it fully covered? If not, what was the cost? Do you know the cost to the county last fiscal year? And you said, so right now that cost to the county general fund is $7,000 per month. I think I saw one of the bills that we paid, it was $3,651 on a bill on December 10th that was written to the security company. I didn't see one towards the end of the month.
So, yeah, sometimes those aren't real timely, Commissioner. But yes, it's approximately $7,000 a month. And to answer your question, as far as 2020, the entire cost of the screeners in the year 2020 was covered by COVID relief money. And quite frankly, we do not know what COVID relief packages will be forthcoming in 21. Any further discussion on the motion that's on the floor?
This is Commissioner Schmidt. My concern about voting on this motion is if we discontinue the use of the screeners, but we keep our courthouse buildings closed, how are we going to handle that, and what does that look like?
Well, that is a good point, Kathy. The two issues are almost tie-barred, in some respect. Um,
Commissioner Wiley. This
Go
is
ahead.
Commissioner Ingles. While we're talking about the county office building and the courthouse with the screeners, there are other county buildings that do not have screeners. What is the process that is in place with other county buildings?
Excuse me. So friend of the court is locked to the public. They only have been seeing people by appointment. The sheriff's department, of course, you have to be buzzed in. They have a FOIA area where you can't enter the building. Very similar out to 911. I do not know what they're doing out to the road commission since that's, their own separate entity, so to speak. But those are
When I went out there, the doors were locked and they let me in.
Okay. But those are our primary buildings as far as the sheriff, 911, and friend of the court. And then, of course, the three buildings here that we're talking about. So.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Benzing.
thank you. I'm just going to speak in favor of the motion. Couple of points. The first and foremost, the fiscally conservative Commissioner Benzing speaks to the $7,000 a month. That's $84,000 a year, and kind of channeling former Commissioner Caswell. Where are you going to cut $84,000 from? Because, well, you can take it from contingency, but the reason why we have a contingency is for unexpected expenses. So someone is going to have to give up $84,000 in this year's budget in order for those screeners to continue. So I feel that it is fiscally irresponsible to be spending that money. The next thing that I will speak to is that I am a retailer. Retail is open for business. You can walk into Walmart, you can walk into Kroger's, you can walk into the Market House, and yes, they have signs on the door, and yes, you are required under the EOs, the emergency orders, not executive orders, you are required to wear a mask or a face covering. That is state law, and our buildings.
Did we lose Commissioner Benzing?
Yes, I believe we did.
He's got an internet circle.
Yeah, he's buffering.
Capture, we can leave those monitors, those self-screening stations at the door and ask the public to self-screen themselves. But I think that we really, if we look at my own experience with those screeners, is that yes, they are there. Yes, they are asking people to sign in, but they are really not serving any purpose that we could not save $7,000 a month by simply asking the public to comply with those regulations like they do when they go anyplace else. And I know, Commissioner Riley, that you have strong feelings in regard to this. I can tell you, I've been sitting in the back of ambulances with COVID patients since March. So I think I have some direct appreciation. I too have had friends, acquaintances, business associates that have been affected by COVID, either have had the illness. I know people personally that have died with the illness. I have transported patients on ventilators with the illness. So I do have an intimate familiarity with it. However, we have a responsibility to the public to be open for business. And we also have a responsibility to the public to be fiscally responsible. And so, therefore, the reason for my motion is the fiscally responsible part. And hopefully a little bit later on in the meeting, we can move on to the issue of opening up the buildings. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, I believe the motion was stated that we would discontinue the contract with the screeners effective January 31st. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That was my motion.
Thank you.
And that was my second.
Yep. So with that said, if there's no further discussion, we will vote.
Commissioner Wiley,
Go ahead,
Um,
Kathy.
my concern about voting on this one before we decide if the county building's open or closed is that you're hamstringing one before you make the other decision. I don't know if we can reverse the order of the vote or postpone the vote. I'm not a Robert's Rules aficionado, so someone else is gonna have to give us some guidance on this.
Go ahead, Brent. You're our expert.
Yes, in that regard, we would have to table it and which would require a simple majority to table, and that would require a simple majority to take it back off of the table. I don't see this as tying our hands on the next issue, because let's say the doors continue to remain locked, as opposed to, and I know if we went this route, if the doors continue to remain locked even after January 31st, if they had to call the departments that they were coming to see before they could come in, which many in our community have had to do when they visited the USDA Farm Service Agency. You show up, you make a phone call, they come out and conduct the business outside. They don't do it inside. Whether that would be, I don't think that would be completely feasible in some of the transactions that need to be done in county business. But, you know, I don't see us having to deal with that issue before we answer this question.
Well, in respect to staff having to go to answer the door, that kind of defeats the purpose, not only from a fiscally responsible part, but also from a time perspective. So I would argue that if we're going to keep the buildings locked, then the screeners serve a valuable purpose to let those people in, screen them, et cetera. But we haven't got there, and Kathy's point, I think, is well taken. Are we discussing the wrong item first? You know, bear in mind, if we vote this down, we can't bring it back up. So if once we vote on the buildings being open or closed, you know, and perhaps this is an issue that needs to be tie-barred. Maybe we need to have the motion changed to include both items. I guess I'm just throwing that out for discussion. Yeah, I think we lost. Yeah, I don't know. Any further discussion on it? Or have we lost a couple people?
I'm still here.
Okay. Brad, are you still there?
I'm gonna call Brad.
Thank you. Yeah,
Finally unmute, Commissioner.
yeah, thank you.
I didn't hear very much of what you said there because you were buffering. Maybe I'm buffering.
One of us was. So what I said was, should these two issues get tie-barred together, because they are somewhat connected, if not totally connected. And when talking about fiscal responsibility, having people run to the door from the particular office is not exactly the best use of their time. So, you know, it becomes an issue of, you know, dollars and labor. But perhaps we're discussing the wrong item first. I can't disagree with Kathy. These are connected. Commissioner Smith, do you have a comment?
I would agree with you, in the sense that I just soon not discontinue the screeners at this point until we know what that plan is for how we're going to operate the 3 buildings that screen: the Cobb building, the courthouse, and I'm not sure what the third one was you said was. So
The annex, Kathy.
the annex. Okay, that's right, the annex, because I've been in the annex. For me, I would like that plan in the sense of which building possibly really needs one. The courthouse, maybe more so than the other 2. I don't know. But I to terminate it as of the end of January at this point, I don't think we have a plan in place on how we're going to move forward with the pandemic, with closing of the buildings. You know, are they required to be closed? Are they not required to be closed? And what the right thing is going forward.
Well, just to add to that comment, Kathy, Doug Sanford and I talked yesterday, and probably as per usual, we will not get an update on the current orders until Thursday or maybe as late as Friday. And the current orders by MDHHS and MIOSHA for that matter, currently sunset on midnight of the 15th. If those are extended, that makes some of this discussion somewhat mute. So we may or may not have authority based on the orders that may come out Thursday or Friday to make any changes. I mean, yes or no. I mean, that's debatable as well, but we don't know what the orders will be coming out of Lansing later this week.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
for clarification, is there an order in place that requires public buildings to be closed? To my knowledge, that it affects restaurants for in-person dining or inside dining. Is there, as part of the current Department of Health and Human Services order, a requirement that public buildings be closed?
It's not specifically stated in that manner, Commissioner. There are several places that are ambiguous, I guess would be the way to put it. One of which is in the MIOSHA order, that an employer can be subject to fines if they allow open access to their building and endanger their employees. And then there is a list of exceptions, which grocery stores and retailers are one of the exceptions. County buildings are not listed as an exception. So that would be the only place that it is even remotely indicated.
So that I'm hearing you correctly, that the answer to my question is no, there is no place in the order that specifically states county buildings or public buildings are closed to the public.
Not specifically, it is ambiguous. but it is stated that you are subject to fines under my OSHA if you endanger your employees. So that was what we have worked off of since before Thanksgiving.
Commissioner Wiley, this is Commissioner Ingalls.
Go ahead.
So in the clerk's office and in other offices that, in the secured buildings, there have been partitions and safety measures put in place to protect the employees, according to my observation.
That is correct. Those help to mitigate the extent of exposure.
I would like to vote on the motion.
Any other comments at this time? Okay, we'll vote on the motion.
Commissioner Leininger,
Yes.
Commissioner Ingalls,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
No.
Commissioner Wiley,
No?
Commissioner Benzing.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-2. The other issue is the buildings being open or closed. And without the screeners, I'm not sure of what position you want to take.
Well, even with the screeners, I think we should take an issue, even now. If I recall correctly, Mr. Chairman, there has never been board action on the closing of the county office. I think that was just done by the chairman of the commission, if I am correct. I know you had discussion about that at your December, the last meeting in December of last year. You voted at that point in time to extend the contract with the screeners until the 31st. But there was discussion and a statement that the county buildings would remain closed until the 11th. But I never saw an actual motion in regards to any of that.
There was not an actual motion. It was done by consensus. So what is your pleasure, Commissioner?
Commissioner Wiley, this is Commissioner Ingalls.
Go ahead.
So my pleasure would be to maintain safety standards in the offices and with no screeners and with signage posted on doors.
Is that in the form of a motion or, and I guess, are you implying that the doors be unlocked and at what time?
Well, I thought we were discussing it a little bit. If you want a motion, I would make a motion that the doors be unlocked during normal business hours, which to my understanding is 8:30 to 5 p.m. I also understand that the building has a lunchtime from noon to 1. I would suggest in the motion that lunchtime be closed as well. And I suggest in my motion that signage be applied to all doors with proper wording, and that my motion also includes that proper safety standards be established, if they are not, for employees.
So We are closed on Monday, the 18th. May I suggest that that become effective, to add to your motion, Mr. Ingles, it become effective on 1/19 of this month? If that's acceptable? Because
We don't have a second yet.
we're currently closed through the 5th, we're currently maintaining the policy through the 15th of.
Well, the screeners right now are through the end of January, that's my understanding.
That's correct.
Okay, so I would say that my motion would include the start date to coincide with the screeners, unless you think there should be an overlap.
So you would open the buildings, I guess I'm looking for a date that you're proposing the doors being unlocked.
I propose unlocking the doors immediately. And the screeners would still be in place. However, the doors are unlocked.
Okay, I guess what I'm getting at is the message of the day that David sent out and was also on the radio, that the current policy of appointments and doors open, et cetera, extends through the 15th based on the current orders. And that's what the chief judge and Doug and I talked about a week ago. And that was on the radio last week as well as Monday. So that's why I'm trying to pin you down to a date, Doug.
Okay,
So, and the 19th would be the first business day after the 15th because we're closed on Monday, the 18th.
I would be agreeable with that.
Okay, so if that's part of your motion, that's fine. We just need a support then at this point.
I will support that, Commissioner Lanier.
Thank you. As a point of clarity, the doors historically have opened at 8 and the offices open at 8:30. So just as a point of clarity.
And I think Commissioner Wiley, another point of clarity, I don't think the building itself has ever been locked during the lunch hour. Certain offices that may have a lunch hour are locked, but the building itself is not locked because there are different offices have slightly different office hours, different lunch hours. And so I don't think, the entire building would need to be locked. Just, if the treasurer's office still takes lunch from 12 to 1 and they're locked, there's no reason to lock the entire building.
I'm agreeable with that.
So yes, each office could post on their door. The original intent of being closed noon to 1, at least here during COVID and during the pandemic, was so that the screeners could get their lunch. So, so yes, that's, if you want to strike that noon to 1 on your, if the maker of the motion and the supporter are agreeable to that, we'll just strike that part of the motion.
I'm agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Benzing.
thank you. Just in thinking about the mechanics of this and the way that the county office building is structured, the clerk's office is a little bit different because of their location inside the historic courthouse building. But within the county office building, we do have that corridor. We do have individual doors. Just throwing out an idea, not really asking to amend anything, that we might consider that the individual offices could keep their doors locked. And then if a member of the public that they could either make an appointment and then call when they were outside, or that they could knock on that door and then a staff member, that would allow the staff within that that office to maintain that bubble, so to speak, that they have been in the past. If they are going to deal with the public, then they could don the appropriate personal protective gear, because I believe right now members within that office that are within that module, they are only doing that when members from outside of that office come into it. So that might just allow for, if they were to keep those doors locked or give them the option of that, then it would allow for them then to come and meet that member of the public or whoever who is coming into that individual office, to interact with them. Of course, we do have the plexiglass barriers up, and so that's helpful. And of course, the MIOSHA rule does say that they will wear face coverings, both the public and the employees will. I think from the standpoint of our employees that we have to be in compliance with that and ask them to do that. Of course, we must ask the public to do so, but they, of course, can claim an exemption, and we really can't question on them on the nature of that exemption. That's just going to be up on the honor system like Good Scouts should be.
Good point. I will certainly take that up with the elected and department heads when we have a WebEx meeting or conference call, which I know we have another one coming up here soon. So any further comments on the motion?
So clarification, Mr. Chairman, I do believe the motion is to open the county office buildings effective January 19th, still using the screeners at the doors at that point in time. But that will continue until, and per the previous action, until the 31st, if I am correct. And then after that, the doors will continue to remain open with individual self-screening when they enter the county buildings.
I think that's pretty good summarization.
Commissioner Wiley, this is Commissioner Schmidt.
Go ahead.
I know that we're closed through the 15th due to actions by the governor and or the Department of Health, where that's coming from. If they come on and extend current rules, does that affect whether our building can or can't be opened as of the 19th?
I would say that there is a possibility based on whatever the orders, indicate. There is always the possibility that, we could withdraw the action depending on whether or not we were in violation. So, but there again, as I indicated, we don't know what the governor or DHHS or MIOSHA for that matter is going to do later this week at this point in time.
So if they come back and our buildings are supposed to be closed, how does that work? We just close them? We don't have to have a commissioner vote on that? Or how does that, what's the mechanics?
Well, the other side of that, Kathy, is that we could withdraw this motion at this point in time and deal with it at the next meeting, so that we know better of what is going to happen. But that's entirely up to the board, seeing how we're kind of in a state of limbo, so to speak. That would be up to the board whether we wanted to withdraw this or table it and take it up at the next meeting on the 26th.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I would go back to my original question asked and answered. Are we directly under orders to close public buildings? And there is no direct order. It may be implied, it may not be implied. But if a new order from Health and Human Services specifically stated that public buildings would be closed, that would be an action beyond what this board could do. If this board had control over those orders from Health and Human Services, I believe that we probably would tell our local restaurants that they could open back up again. But that's something outside the scope of us. So if they tell us that public buildings have to be closed, that's not a decision for the Board of Commissioners. That's a decision for them. But I am not convinced that the current order says that public buildings must be closed. I also will tell you that within where we are, the limits of where we're sitting, the city of Hillsdale, that the Hillsdale City Hall is open to the public. That public building is open. I can tell you that in the townships that I represent that have met this month, that their buildings are open to the public and they are meeting in person. So I guess that one way or another, they might be able to single out and they might be able to find it. Maybe we're the biggest target because we've got the most employees, but the city of Hillsdale is pretty big too. And to the best of my knowledge, that there has not been any OSHA violations or my OSHA violations with them having their building open to the public. And I think it's time that we move forward and start serving our customers again. So to specifically answer Commissioner Smith's question, I think that if they specifically state that there is a new order that says that public buildings must be closed to the public, well, we'll let that fall back on them. That's kind of out of our venue. But right now, I am not convinced that they've told us to be closed in the first place. It was by board action that we closed, and it will be by board action that we reopen. Thank you.
The only thing I would add to that, Mr. Benzien, is we do not necessarily have control over what the State Court Administrative Office tells the judges in reference to the court buildings. So there may be a conflict there, and we'll have to take that one day at a time.
Understood on that. And if the State Court Administrator's Office, I believe that we have an amendment to the Michigan Constitution that says if that the state tells us we got to do something, and I realize they're not the legislative branch that Headley specifically speaks to, but the State Court Administrator's Office, that they can come up with the funds to have screening on that building, or the judges can come up with the funds. But I, being a fiscally responsible member of this board, I am not going to support having any form that is going to preclude that, and we'll leave that up to the judges.
Yeah, and I'm not referring to the screeners. We already voted on that issue. I'm referring to whether or not the State Court Administrator's Office indicates they need to keep those doors locked. So that's out of our preview. Any further discussions on the motion at hand? I think it's been summarized. Okay, we'll vote.
Can I get some clarification? I mean, on this motion.
Okay, Marnie wants to clarify the motion.
Okay, so the motion reads the buildings will be open at 8 a.m. on January 19th. Offices will be open at 8:30 for normal business hours. As far as the offices being closed from noon to 1, I believe right now that all offices are, to my knowledge. So the signage that you alluded to applied to all the doors. What doors are you referring to? The entrance doors?
Yes.
Okay. And you will work with me on the proper verbiage on those signs, Commissioner Ingles, or?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that proper verbiage is already there, because I do believe the signs on the doors were put up per the MDHHS orders and the MIOSHA rules.
Right, exactly.
I think that those signs, I don't know as if they need to be changed or modified. They just need to make sure that that we keep them there and prevalent.
Well, we need to make sure the wording is current.
Okay.
Okay,
And the proper safety standards to be applied.
For staff.
I'm sorry.
for staff.
Okay. Okay, so based on, just a question, based on the courthouse not having a self-screener, how will that work? I believe the Cobb building has
Yeah.
where the customer will put their face, and who's going to monitor that to see whether they do or not?
The screener is in place until the end of January, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I'm speaking after that, though.
So after that is what Marnie is asking, how do we handle people coming into that building?
You know, the signage is on the doors, and the self-screening is by the person. If you're sick, don't come in. Just as businesses, my business is required to have signage, and that is not unlike having customers coming into the county building.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Kathy.
This, I guess my concern with the signage is this. When I walk up to any of those buildings, there's a lot of white paper with black words on it, and I have no idea which ones apply to me or not. And am I truly going to stand there and read for 10 minutes to figure out what applies to me or not? I'm not sure who addresses this issue or how it's solved, but if you're opening up the buildings and you expect people to read all those signs before they walk in, I don't think they're going to. And the reason I know this is because I was looking for the sign on the courthouse that essentially said you couldn't carry a weapon into the courthouse, and how that worked. And it took me a while to figure out where the sign was. So again, I don't know what signs have to be posted. I don't know their orders of importance. I don't know if we had color signs so that you knew which one you were looking for. I don't know what the answer is, but I certainly don't like the way it's done currently.
Well, I believe Mr. Ingles is in charge or liaison to IT as well as facilities. And I'm sure that he can get with them to help resolve that.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Mr. Benzing, you had a comment?
Yes, I was just simply going to suggest to Commissioner Ingles that he get with Randy. We might want to consider, we could probably purchase for little of nothing a A-frame type, sandwich type board, and we could put all of those notices right there on that at the entrance to the building. I know right now we've got the desk for the screener there, and you could probably, a sandwich board could occupy that space, so it's actually inside. Once you step inside the building, you have to walk around it. That way those notices could all be in one place and pretty easy to see, and that hopefully would address Mr. Smith's concerns.
Thank you, Commissioner Benzing. Great idea.
Anything further before we vote on the issue? Okay.
Commissioner Ingles,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
No.
Commissioner Wiley,
No.
Commissioner Benzing,
Yes.
Commissioner Leininger.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-2. Okay.
Commissioner, I do want to take care of this next action in a motion. I just want to once the building is open, I move that each elected official and office staff be allowed to lock their office and to restrict the number of public individuals in their office at any time for their own safety. And
You'd like that as a standalone motion?
I would, sir, yes, just for that clarification so that it's.
Would you please repeat your motion one more time?
I move that once the county buildings are open, that the other elected officials and director heads be allowed to limit access to the public to their space based on for safety and security reasons, and to do so by, if necessary, locking their doors and only allowing a specified number of public in at a certain time.
Commissioner Schmidt, I'll support that motion.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but is there any discussion?
And I say that just so that we don't have a situation like I have seen at many retailers where, you've got more congestion in a retail store now than you did prior to the COVID situation.
If this Commissioner Schmidt speaking, if this resolution passes, is there a time frame on it? So we're saying they could keep their doors locked forever. Is that what we want? Should there be a time frame? I don't know. Throwing it out there for discussion.
Good point, but I don't think we know at this point, Kathy, how much longer we're going to be in the pandemic, and
Well,
I
I would add an amendment to that. Current Open Meetings Act allows us to move that we add a date of March 31st for that, and to be reviewed by the Board of Commission prior to that date.
I support that amendment if you need a support.
Okay, we'll make it a friendly amendment so we don't have to vote on an amendment. How's that?
Good. Sounds good to me.
Okay, so effective
Through-
March 31st.
Well, it'd be through the 31st.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the board to review.
Board to review
Prior to that date.
prior to that date. Very good, very good.
And I do that because I know there was some conversation before about allowing them to do that. I don't want that left to interpretation. I want to put it in actual language that we're going to allow that, just so that you don't have 10 people standing in the treasurer's office all at once.
Sounds appropriate.
I have a sign on my door, Brent, that says no more than 2 people in the office at one time.
Okay.
Thank you, Steph. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, we'll vote.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes?
Commissioner Benzing. Commissioner Benzing,
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Leininger,
Yes.
Commissioner Ingalls.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. I've got a couple other points here. Emails to the board. Generally, if you're going to send something out to the entire board, please include Jody and Marnie on that email. That way we keep them in the loop, especially if it's something the board is going to take action on. So, or have discussed as part of the meeting. So in the future, please include them. Something that was said during the budget cycle, and I know I've talked to Kathy and Derek about this. The elected officials and some of the department heads were said that there would be a review of wages by the board in 2021. So by statute, that has to be done prior to November 1st to take effect for the 2022 budget. So it would not be effective this year, but the study needs to be conducted. Marnie and I could certainly share some information that we did 7 years ago by surveying MAC information, county information from other counties, et cetera. But with that said, I need to appoint Kathy, Brent, because you are chair and vice chair of finance, and Derek to conduct the wage study and then report back to the board. I would like a initial request or an initial assessment anyways, no later than the first meeting in July. So you'll be looking at elected official positions, their deputies, and department heads. Those are the three that need to be reviewed. So, the other thing the last thing I have is the next meeting, which will be on Tuesday, January 26th. With all the discussion on the screeners, the opening of the building, et cetera, et cetera, I'm assuming at this time that the board would like to meet in person. Bear in mind that this room is very difficult to socially distance. And under the current orders, if those are extended, we can't have more than 10 people in here. That becomes problematic because we can't tell the public they can't be in here if we're meeting as a body of the whole. So, with that said, I would suggest we continue to meet virtually until that restriction of the 10-person indoor is lifted.
Commissioner Wiley, this is Commissioner Ingalls.
Go ahead.
I spoke with David today, or yesterday briefly, at IT, and it is possible for us to meet in person as a board and still run WebEx so that public comment can happen on WebEx and or through YouTube and phone in. Dave said that both those are options and he didn't know which one or how he could make this work, but he did say that we can meet in person as a board and still maintain WebEx.
And Commissioner Wiley, this is Commissioner Leininger. I would add to that as I read the Open Meetings Act that the legislature amended again right at the end of the year, that through March 31st does allow for any combination of participation in an open meeting. So even though, let's say, we open the doors to the public and the public can be here in person, members of this body can still participate remotely in that meeting and don't have to be here in person. Just as the public could participate remotely. And I also do believe that there's language in the Open Meetings Act that, we can follow the fire marshal's guidance as far as allowing the number of people in based just on space that is capable. And I think that space that's capable has to also be concurrent with the space that the MDHHS order allows for other people to be involved as well. So I'm not as concerned about that in that regard, because if need be, you know, and there's more than, we have 10 people in there and the 11th one comes, I think we as a commission could remove ourselves to another place in the building to participate remotely.
I believe that is referred to as a hybrid meeting, is some of the language I've heard. So I can certainly get with David. We can talk about it, but I guess what I'm hearing is we'll do some form of an open meeting, whether it be hybrid or what, but we'll plan on the next meeting being in person, and we'll work through it with whatever challenges we have. And go ahead, Kathy.
Again, clarification, the letter that you sent to us that was David Stoker, when it said it prohibited in-person meetings, the emergency rule had to do with a gathering where 2 or more persons from more than one household are present in a shared space. And then it talked about 10 people. Now, again, I just want clarification. I know there's going to be more than from 2 households, and we're good with still having that meeting in person.
Me personally, no, Kathy, I am not good with that, because you are absolutely correct. Now, the language though that he references, the 10 persons and the 2 household, that is due to expire on the 15th, unless it is, of course, extended. So that's where part of the problem on this discussion goes.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Benzing.
Thank you. Just in looking at that, I believe that you will note that we, the commissioners, as well as the clerk to the Board of Commissioners, the various department heads, other elected officials, are all employees of Hillsdale County. We may be elected to those positions, but we are employees. And I believe that there is an exception for the meeting of employees. And so therefore, the number of us in the room, we are employees, and does not apply. That 10-person limit would apply to people who are not employees of the county.
I had a lengthy discussion with David on the phone about that, and that is open to interpretation. And he said he has actually interpreted it both ways. So moving target once again, Mr. Benzin.
And I guess that I would quote Thomas Jefferson and say, I prefer dangerous freedom.
Yeah, I understand. So, okay, well, I'll do my best to accommodate this as an open meeting. We'll just have to see what orders come down that get in the way later this week.
Mr. Commissioner, this is Commissioner Ingalls.
Yes.
Are you looking for a motion regarding the open meeting for the Board of Commissioners meeting?
I don't think we need one, Mr. Ingalls. I think we'll plan on it. I just wanted to bring it up as a discussion item. I think we all need to stay tuned to what is stated later this week. And then I can certainly reach out to legal again if there's something that, looks like it may prohibit us. But I think we can do some sort of hybrid regardless. So that's all I have, unless there's any other comments or questions for the chairman.
Just one thing, Commissioner Wiley.
Yes.
As it was indicated in the open meeting at the beginning of our meeting, the printed dates for the regular Board of Commissioners meeting for 2021 that we adopted at our last meeting had 2 wrong dates on that. So I would move that we correct that published or posted meeting dates for the month of April to indicate the 13th and 27th or what we adopted was the 6th and the 20th.
So if you want to do that, that's fine. We corrected it internally as a clerical error.
Yeah, I
But
just wanted to make,
entirely your prerogative.
well, I said that was in the agenda that way. I want to make sure that we recognize that in the motion that we're changing that.
We can do that. Is there a support for that?
I'll support the motion.
Thank you. I think it's self-explanatory, but is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes?
Commissioner Benzing,
Yes.
Commissioner Leininger,
Yes,
Commissioner Ingalls,
Yes,
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Passes 5-0. Thank you. Anything further on that or any other issue? Hearing none, we'll open it back up for public comment. Any public wish to address the board? Additional business. Mr. Ingalls, anything additional?
no, sir.
Mr. Benzing?
Nothing, sir.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Nothing.
Commissioner Leininger?
just one thing, I want to make sure that we express the county's condolences to our current drain commissioner on the passing of his father, who had been county drain commissioner in Hillsdale County, I do believe, for 24 years prior to his retirement. And just our condolences on behalf of the county for their loss.
Duly noted. Thank you for that. And with that, I have nothing further. We stand adjourned. Thank you all for attending.